I thought retirement would mean gardening, books, and maybe cooking dinner for my son once in a while, but at his wedding, my new daughter-in-law poured a full glass of red wine onto my dress in front of hundreds of guests. People assumed it was just petty drama. They had no idea that moment would push me to rip apart an empire. And what I uncovered was darker than anyone imagined. My name is Evelyn March, 59 years old. I retired after 30 years as a forensic accountant. Retirement meant morning coffee, newspapers, and watering my plants. A quiet life. I thought I would never go back to late nights with reports and endless spreadsheets. Then my son, Caleb, got married. The wedding was held in a luxury hotel downtown. I remember digging through my closet, trying to find something appropriate. In the end, I rented a dress. It cost me 3 months of utility bills, but I wore it proudly. I wanted Caleb to see me looking strong on his big day. When I entered the ballroom, I almost couldn't breathe. Chandeliers everywhere, mountains of fresh flowers, guests in designer suits. Outside, luxury cars lined the street. I smiled, but inside, I felt like I didn't belong. And then, it happened. I bent down to pick up a napkin near Vesper's chair, my new daughter-in-law. A few drops of water from a glass spilled onto my dress. I brushed it off, no big deal. But when I looked up, Vesper was staring at me. She lifted her glass of red wine. Before I could react, she tilted it. "Oh!" someone gasped. The wine spread across my dress, deep red. The room went dead silent. Then a short, sharp laugh cut through. Caleb rushed to me. "Mom!" "Oh my God, are you okay?" I stood there, soaked, looking at Vesper. She smiled, calm, not guilty at all. "Oh, I'm so sorry, must have slipped." "Just an accident." I stared into her eyes. That wasn't an accident. I excused myself and walked to the bathroom. In the mirror, I saw the stain bleeding through the pale fabric. I whispered to myself, she did that on purpose. That night, I didn't sleep. I left the dress in a plastic bag on the chair, staring at it like evidence. A few days later, a white envelope arrived. Inside was a letter from Cassian Ashford, Vesper's father. Polite apology, short, and a check. $57,000. I laughed to myself. So that's it? They think I'll shut up for a check? I put it in a drawer. The next day, Caleb visited. He saw the dress still in the bag. "Mom, why keep that? Just throw it away." "Caleb, do you realize she meant to do it?" "Mom, come on, it was just wine. Weddings are stressful." "No, Caleb." She looked at me first, then she poured. That wasn't stress. He sighed, shook his head. "Mom, please, don't make this worse." I didn't argue. I opened my laptop instead. 30 years of habit came back fast. I searched the Ashford companies, checked their public filings, the charities with perfect names. At first, it was curiosity, but then the patterns appeared. Numbers that didn't add up, shipping routes that made no sense, shell companies vanishing overnight. One late night, I printed a report, circled a $4 million discrepancy in red ink. I stared at it and muttered, "This is the real stain, not the dress." I knew then. The game had begun, and I wasn't going to stop. Not long after the wedding, the phone rang. The caller ID said Ashford Holdings. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Mrs. March." The voice was smooth, calm. "This is Cassian Ashford. I'd like to meet you." For a second, I didn't breathe. Why would a man like him, a billionaire with more lawyers than I have socks, call me directly? "About what?" I asked. "A misunderstanding," he replied, "and an opportunity." 2 days later, I walked into their corporate headquarters. Glass towers, polished marble floors, people in suits moving like soldiers. I felt out of place, but I didn't let it show. Cassian met me in a private office. He was older, sharp eyes, not wasting words. "Evelyn," he said, as if we were old friends, "I owe you another apology." What happened at the wedding, it was unfortunate. I held his gaze. "Your daughter-in-law dumped wine on me. That wasn't unfortunate. That was deliberate." He didn't blink. "You're perceptive." "Good, that's exactly why I'm calling you." I frowned. "Calling me for what?" He leaned forward. "We'd like to hire you." consultant. Internal compliance review. With your background, you'd be useful. I laughed, short and dry. You want me to clean your books? Not clean, he said. Just check. And of course, you'd be compensated. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside, a draft contract, numbers too big to ignore. I read it carefully, line by line. That's when I saw it, a small clause buried under legal jargon. Employees and consultants had the right to report unlawful activity to authorities. A loophole, maybe intentional, maybe sloppy. Either way, it was my opening. I looked up. I'll need full access. He smiled. Of course. That was the moment I stepped into their world. The first day as consultant felt surreal. They gave me an office on the 15th floor, a company laptop, and an assistant named Mara, who looked at me like I didn't belong. Coffee? She asked flatly. No, thank you, I said, but I'll need files. Shipping manifests, subsidiary reports, and the list of active charities. Her eyebrows shot up. That's a lot. Then start now, I said. By the end of the week, I was buried in paperwork, and the patterns screamed at me. A company called Maritime Solutions claimed $12 million in shipments. Customs showed only 8. $4 million vanished. I marked the file with red ink. Evidence number 1. Another company, International Trade Education Society, listed donations from abroad, but the same amounts appeared again on the expense side, washed and clean. At night, I took copies home, scanned them, and hid them in a locked drawer. If they caught me, I'd be finished. But I couldn't stop. One evening, Caleb visited again. He saw the stacks of paper on my table. Mom, what is all this? He asked. Your in-laws' numbers, I answered. He rubbed his face, frustrated. Mom, you're digging into the Ashfords? That's dangerous. I looked straight at him. Dangerous is pretending nothing's wrong. Dangerous is being married to a family built on lies. He shook his head. Vesper says you hate her. She says you'll do anything to make her look bad. I laughed bitterly. She's not wrong about one thing. I don't like her, but I don't need to make her look bad. She's already drowning in her own mess. Caleb looked torn, silent. Then he whispered, Please, be careful. I put a hand on his arm. I know what I'm doing. Just trust me. Late that night, alone in my small kitchen, I laid out all the files across the table. Shipping routes, bank transfers, fake charities. I whispered to myself, they're laundering money. Millions. And if I follow the trail long enough, I'll find the whole machine. And I realized the wine on my dress was just the first warning. The real danger was only beginning. By the 3rd week, I was deep in their records. I had enough to know it wasn't sloppy accounting. It was deliberate. Money was moving through shell companies, charities, shipping routes, clean on paper, dirty underneath. One afternoon, I was in my office when the door opened without a knock. Vesper walked in. She didn't smile. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it. Enjoying your new job, mother-in-law? She asked, her tone sharp. I put my pen down. I'm working. Working on what exactly? She tilted her head, eyes narrow. Because Mara tells me you've been requesting files that don't concern you. They concern me, I said calmly. I was hired to review compliance. Her laugh was short, cold. Compliance? Don't play games. You think I don't know why you're here? You want revenge for a glass of wine. I looked straight at her. That wine wasn't an accident. She smirked. So what if it wasn't? What are you going to do, ruin me? I leaned back in my chair, forcing myself to stay steady. I don't have to ruin you. The numbers will do that. Her smile faded. For the first time, she looked unsettled. Then she leaned closer, voice low. You don't understand what you're stepping into. This isn't about you. This is bigger than you. Walk away while you still can. I didn't answer. I just held her stare. After a moment, she straightened, smoothed her dress, and left without another word. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her warning wasn't just arrogance, it was real. There was something larger behind the Ashfords, something dangerous. I sat in the dark kitchen, files spread across the table. I whispered to myself, she thinks she can scare me off. She doesn't know me. A few days later, Caleb invited me to dinner at their house. Against my better judgment, I went. The Ashford mansion was all glass and stone, like something out of a magazine. Inside, the staff moved quietly, like ghosts. At the table, Cassian was polite. Vesper was radiant, playing the perfect hostess. But under the surface, every word was a test. So, Evelyn, Cassian said smoothly, how do you find the work? Not too overwhelming, I hope. I forced a smile. Numbers don't overwhelm me. Vesper's eyes flicked to me, cold and sharp. She set her glass down. You know, Caleb worries about you. He thinks you're overworked. Maybe you should slow down, I answered evenly. I'm fine. But thank you for your concern. Cassian chuckled. Strong woman. I respect that. Just remember, some things are better left untouched. I nodded politely, but inside my chest tightened. It wasn't advice. It was a warning. Later that night, Caleb walked me to the door. He looked torn. Mom, please, just drop this. Vesper's not perfect, but this is my life. Don't destroy it. I touched his cheek. Caleb, I'm not trying to destroy your life. I'm trying to save it. He shook his head, eyes glassy. You don't know them. I whispered, I know enough. Then I left. Back home, I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and opened my files again. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from certainty. They weren't just rich. They were criminals, and if I kept digging, I might not only expose them, I might not live to finish it. I knew I couldn't do this alone anymore. The files on my kitchen table weren't just suspicious. They were evidence. Laundering, fraud, offshore accounts, the kind of crimes that brought down entire corporations. So I made a choice. The next morning, I walked into a federal building downtown. Security checks, metal detectors, the cold air of bureaucracy. I asked to speak with someone in financial crimes. An agent named Miller met me in a small interview room. Gray suit, tired eyes. He looked at me like I was wasting his time. Mrs. March, what exactly do you think you have? I placed a thick folder on the table. Proof. The Ashford family is laundering millions, and that's just the start. He raised an eyebrow. The Ashfords? As in Ashford Industries? Yes, I said firmly, and if you ignore this, you'll regret it. He flipped through the pages, his face shifting from boredom to focus. He asked questions, specific ones. I answered every single one. My 30 years of experience weren't just history, they were my weapon. Finally, he leaned back. You realize what you're doing here, right? If you're wrong, they'll bury you. If you're right, they'll still try to bury you. I know, I said, but I'm not wrong. From that day, I became their informant. Quiet meetings, burner phones, late-night calls. I handed over files piece by piece, enough to build a case without drawing too much attention. But the Ashfords weren't stupid. They noticed. One evening, as I left the office, I felt it. Someone following me. Steps too steady, too close. I turned quickly. The man in a dark coat stopped, pretended to check his phone. My heart pounded. At home, I triple-locked the door. I called Agent Miller. They know, I whispered. Stay calm, he said. We'll watch you. But don't stop. We need more. A week later, Vesper cornered me again, this time in the parking garage. She stepped out of the shadows, heels clicking on concrete. You think you're clever, don't you? She said softly. I swallowed hard but kept my voice steady. I'm just doing my job. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. If you dig too deep, you'll find things you can't handle. People you can't fight. Walk away, Evelyn, or you won't walk at all. Her words echoed as she walked past me, her perfume lingering like poison. That night, Caleb called. Mom, what's going on? Vesper says you're acting paranoid. She says you've been... Caleb, I cut him off. Listen to me. Your wife and her family are criminals. I have proofs. And he was silent for a long time. Then he whispered, if that's true, what happens to me? My heart broke. You'll have to choose, Caleb. Them or the truth. I hung up and sat in the dark. The files spread out again. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from clarity. I had crossed the line. There was no turning back. And I knew the Ashfords would come for me. By the 5th week, the puzzle was complete enough to see the picture, and it was bigger than I had imagined. It started with 1 shipping company, then 2, then 3. Each had ties to the Ashfords. Each was moving more money than goods. I traced the transfers: Cayman Islands, Antigua, Belize, offshore banks with fake charities as middlemen, and the deeper I went, the more names appeared. 17 different organizations, billions of dollars. One night, I sat with Agent Miller in a quiet diner off the highway. We spoke in low voices, like criminals. Miller, I whispered, sliding a flash drive across the table. This isn't just laundering. It's weapons, drugs, trafficking. The Ashfords aren't running a company. They're running a hub. He plugged in his laptop, eyes scanning. His jaw tightened. Jesus Christ. This connects to 3 federal cases. You're telling me they're all linked? Yes, I said. And the Ashfords are in the middle. He rubbed his face. Do you know what this means? You're not just up against one family. You're up against an entire network. I leaned forward. I don't care how big they are. They made it personal. Back at the office, I noticed changes. People watching me too closely. Whispers stopping when I walked by. My assistant Mara wouldn't meet my eyes. One afternoon, Cassian called me into his office. He gestured to a chair. Sit. I did. He smiled, polite but sharp. You've been thorough. Very thorough. Almost too thorough. I forced a calm tone. That's my job. He tapped his desk slowly. You know, Evelyn, in this world there are 2 kinds of people. Those who benefit from power and those who get crushed by it. Which are you? I didn't blink. I've survived 30 years in a world full of liars. I know which one I am. His smile faded. The silence stretched. Then he said, almost kindly, be careful. That night, I drove home with my hands tight on the wheel. A black SUV followed me for 10 blocks. When I turned suddenly, it turned too. My chest pounded. I pulled into a gas station right under the lights. The SUV slowed, then disappeared into the night. I sat there shaking. For the first time, I asked myself, was this worth my life? Later, Caleb came to see me, his face pale, voice low. Mom, I overheard something tonight. Vesper was on the phone. She mentioned your name. She said, she won't last long. My stomach dropped. Caleb, you need to leave that house. Now. He shook his head. I can't. I'm in too deep. They'll know I told you. I grabbed his hands. Then at least listen to me. Trust no one in that family. Not your wife. Not her father. No one. His eyes filled with tears. Mom, what if you're wrong? I looked at him, steady. I wish I was. That night, I spread the files across my table again. But now, the papers looked different. They weren't just numbers. They were blood. Guns. Human lives. I whispered to myself, this isn't revenge anymore. This is war. And I knew. There was no way out except through. It happened on a Tuesday night. I was driving home after another long day, files hidden in the trunk. The streets were quiet, too quiet. Then headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. Bright, close, too close. At first, I thought it was just another car in a hurry. But when I turned left, they turned left. I sped up, they sped up. My chest tightened. The SUV black, same as before. I gripped the wheel. Not tonight, I whispered. When the red light turned green, they rammed me. Hard, my car swerved, tires screeching. I fought the wheel, heart pounding. Another hit, stronger this time. I realized they were trying to push me off the road. I swerved into a gas station lot, slammed the horn, drew as much attention as I could. The SUV stopped at the edge of the lot, waited a second, then sped off into the dark. I sat frozen, hands trembling on the wheel. For the first time, I truly believed they might kill me. The next morning, Agent Miller came to my house. He looked grim. "They made a move on you, didn't they?" I nodded. "They tried to run me off the road." He sighed. "That's their way of warning you. If you keep going, next time won't be a warning." I leaned forward. "Then I need to go faster. I don't have time to be scared." He studied me, then slid a burner phone across the table. "Use this. No calls from your own line. And Evelyn, watch your back." At the office, Mara, my assistant, avoided me completely. Too quiet, too careful. Something was off. So I tested her. I left a fake report on my desk listing a non-existent account in Zurich. Within 24 hours, Cassian asked me about Zurich. I knew then Mara was feeding them everything. That night, I copied the real files, hid them under floorboards in my bedroom. If they broke in, they wouldn't find what mattered. The breakthrough came 2 days later. I was scanning invoices when I found it, a manifest marked with a code I hadn't seen before. At first glance, it looked like another shipment of agricultural equipment, but the quantities didn't match. I dug deeper, cross-checked with port records. It wasn't farm equipment, it was rifles. Thousands of them. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just money laundering, this was arms trafficking. I printed the file, tucked it into my bag, and whispered to myself, "This is enough. This could bring them down." That evening, Caleb showed up at my door, his face pale, sweating. "Mom, they know. About you. About the files." My throat tightened. "How do you know?" "Vesper was yelling at her father. I heard my name. Your name. They said she won't make it to the end of the month." I grabbed his hands. "Caleb, listen to me. You need to leave her. Leave that house." He shook his head violently. "I can't. If I leave now, they'll know I've betrayed them. Then at least protect yourself, please." Tears welled in his eyes. "Mom, I don't want to lose you." I pulled him close, whispering, "You won't." Not yet. That night, I sat in the dark with the rifle manifest in my hands. I knew this was the key. The Ashfords weren't just criminals. They were arming wars, and if I didn't move fast, they'd silence me before the truth ever saw daylight. I didn't sleep that night. The rifle manifest sat on my kitchen table, glowing under the lamp like a bomb. I knew what it meant, and so would the FBI. The next morning, I called Agent Miller on the burner phone. "Miller, I have something. Enough to burn them down," he answered quickly, his voice tight. "What is it?" "Arms shipments. Thousands of rifles disguised as farm equipment. I have the manifests. Hard proof." He went silent for a second. Then, "Evelyn, this changes everything. Meet me tonight, usual place. Bring the files." All day, I felt the walls closing in. At the office, Mara wouldn't look at me. Security guards lingered outside my door longer than usual. Cassian passed me in the hallway, gave me a smile that felt like a blade. "Mrs. March," he said softly, "you've been very busy. Don't overwork yourself. Stress can kill." I kept my face neutral. "I'll be fine." But my palms were sweating. That evening, I drove to the diner to meet Miller. The flash drive was in my pocket, wrapped in tape. My hands gripped the wheel so tight they hurt. But Miller never showed. I waited 30 minutes, 40, an hour. No call, no message. My stomach turned cold. Something was wrong. I drove home fast, checking my mirrors every few seconds. At my house, the front door was cracked open. I froze. I had locked it when I left. Inside, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Then I saw it. My files scattered on the floor. Drawers pulled open. Someone had searched the place. I whispered to myself, "They know." The phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up with shaking hands. Vesper's voice, smooth and cold. "You should have listened, Evelyn. Now you've made yourself a target. Stop while you still can, or you won't have a choice." I forced my voice steady. "I'm not stopping." Her laugh was low, chilling. "Then you won't last the week." Click. She hung up. I called Miller again. No answer. I called 3 times. Nothing. Was he compromised? Was he gone? I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the flash drive in my hand. I realized this wasn't just about giving evidence anymore. It was about surviving long enough to make it count. Later that night, Caleb came. He looked terrified. "Mom, they're planning something." I heard Cassian say, "Tie up loose ends." He was talking about you. I grabbed his arm. "Caleb, you need to choose. Right now. Are you with me or with them?" He hesitated, breathing hard. Then he whispered, "With you. Always." I felt tears sting my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "Then help me." "Tomorrow, we deliver this to the feds, no matter what." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against the door, the flash drive clutched in my fist. Every sound outside felt like footsteps. Every shadow looked like danger. I whispered into the dark, "Tomorrow decides everything." And I knew, one way or another, the Ashfords were going down, or I was. The next morning, I woke with the flash drive still clutched in my hand. I knew this was it. Today was the end game. Caleb drove me downtown, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Mom, what if they're already waiting for us?" "Then we make them wait longer," I said, gripping the drive. "But we don't stop." At the federal building, something was off. Security was tighter than usual. As we walked in, 2 men in suits approached. "Mrs. March, you'll come with us." Their tone wasn't official, it was rehearsed. "Wrong." I whispered to Caleb, "Run." He shook his head. "Not without you." Before I could argue, another voice cut in. Firm, sharp. "Stand down." Agent Miller, alive, standing at the end of the hall with a team of federal agents behind him. Guns drawn. The 2 fake agents froze, then bolted. Chaos erupted. Shouts running, the sound of handcuffs snapping shut. Miller rushed over, eyes burning. "They knew about our meeting." My cover was blown. "But we've got them now. Do you have the files?" I handed him the drive. "Everything's here. Money, weapons, trafficking, enough to bury them forever." The raid happened the same night. News cameras caught the Ashford mansion lit up with sirens. Agents stormed the gates, dragging out men in suits, shredding through offices. Cassian was handcuffed in his study, still wearing that smug smile until they read the charges. Then his face collapsed. Vesper tried to run. She slipped out a side door in a silk dress, heels clattering on the stone. For a moment, I thought she'd escape. But 2 female agents caught her at the car, slammed her against the hood. She screamed, cursing my name. "Evelyn, you think you've won?" I stood in the distance, watching. For the first time, I smiled. "Yes, I have." The trial lasted a year. Every day, I sat in that courtroom. Every lie they told unraveled under the weight of the files. Caleb testified. So did former employees, smugglers, even their own accountant who flipped to save himself. In the end, the judge's voice was clear. Cassian Ashford, 45 years. Vesper Ashford, 25 years. 14 others, 5 to 30 years. The empire was gone. Caleb signed the divorce papers in silence. He walked out of the courthouse free, shoulders lighter than I'd ever seen. Outside, reporters swarmed. One asked me, "Mrs. March, do you regret what you did?" I looked straight into the camera. "No, I did what had to be done." They poured wine on my dress. I poured the truth on their empire. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen. Same table, same lamp, but no more files, just quiet. I poured myself a glass of wine, red. I raised it, watching the liquid catch the light. "To Vesper," I whispered. "Thanks for starting this." I drank, and for the first time in months, I felt peace.